Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Horse with No Name podcast. We are reviewing the decade and we're in the home stretch as we are in the 2018-19 academic year for this week. I want to let you know that we are presented by The Grill. And Bob, welcome to 2018-19.
Man, Zach, we're finally in years that are pretty fresh in our minds, that's for sure.
Absolutely. They're getting a little bit easier. I'm recognizing some more names. Some of these players are still, or student athletes are still active. So that's helpful as well.
Yeah.
You can look up some stats and things that way. So happy to be in the home stretch, but very appreciative that we were able to do this during the semester and looking forward to the last two as we're going to, a little teaser for next week. We're going to do the 2019-20 year. It's obviously a very strange end to the year where we kind of pack up and leave all of a sudden due to COVID. And then we're going to do kind of a, what's in the future or what's next for LBC that following week with a couple of current student athletes as well, and just sort of preview maybe what the next decade looks like, or some things we'd like to shoot for, or some things we like about each program and where they can go and things like that. So looking forward to tonight, and also looking forward to the next couple of weeks as well. For tonight, we have two former baseball student athletes. We are joined by Tyler Greenlee and Jacob Schenck. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. How are you doing?
We're doing great here. Thank you.
I'm doing
Tyler,
well
how
too.
are you?
Shank interrupted me, but I'm doing well too.
I'm glad to hear that. Definitely glad to hear that. So we're going to talk a little baseball. We're going to talk a little bit about your 4 years here. You guys played on some very successful teams throughout your 4 years, three of the more successful seasons that we've had in program history in the 40 years that we've had baseball at LBC. So we're not just going to stick with 1 year necessarily. We're going to kind of go through a couple of the years and talk baseball, talk student worker life, and just kind of talk about the changes at LBC over your time and some positives during your tenure at LBC. So kind of for both of you, you guys can take turns here on this first one, but both of you played, like I said, on very successful teams, including the 16, 17, 18 teams were the best 3-year stretch in the 40 years of the program. What made those teams so successful? There's 2 NEAC playoff runs in there as well. What were some things that made the team successful during the course of your time there, especially those first 3 years? Jacob, I'll start with you.
I would just say our relationship with all of each other. Like, we're all close friends. We all hung out in class, outside of class, in baseball, outside of baseball. And I think we just all connected really well and knew how to play well with each other and just translated well into the field.
Tyler, you agree?
Yeah, I would say chemistry was a huge factor of those teams. And I mean, we did have some pretty talented guys on our team those years. So just kind of all came together, a lot of talent, a lot of chemistry, good relationships with the guys. And still, I know Shank and I both have contact with a lot of those guys. So yeah, some of the best friends we could ask for on those teams.
We've talked on this podcast during this decade in review about certain seasons being sprints, certain seasons being marathons, more the basketball way. Baseball is sort of right there in the middle. You do have a fall season where you learn a few things about the team. You guys get some reps in as well. And then you kind of take this break. And then you come back in January. And for where we are most years, you really can't do a whole lot in January and February, maybe towards the end of February a little bit. What's it like to sort of start, stop, start inside, stop, then go outside, and then have this sprint of a season where you're literally playing anywhere from 30 to 40 games in hopefully a 10-week span, probably more like 9 a lot of years?
It's difficult. I'd say it's a lot of self-motivation on each player's part, just because there's so much of that stop and go, maybe not mindset, but reality that goes with baseball. You have to be dedicated to put in the work from, in our case, October to January when the season was started. It was kind of like up to you to put in the reps. It really helped. I think it was my sophomore year. We got the team room upstairs in the Student Affairs Center, so guys could be hitting and throwing bullpens all throughout winter. So that helped a lot. But yeah, it was a lot of, you had to have that kind of mentality for yourself to, hey, I gotta get my reps in today because the team's not going to be necessarily making me do it. So
yeah, you kind of get that itch in the fall where you're like, oh, I just want to play. I'm ready for the season. I want it to come, and then just stops, and you have to wait 4 months, something like that. And even in the beginning, it's not a guarantee you're going to be playing. So you kind of like have this hope like, oh, we're going to start on this day, but then the day before it gets canceled, so it makes it even harder. But that final stretch, you just got to get mentally prepared, and that's what waiting is going to do, because you got to play, like you said, 30, 40 games in 9 to 10 weeks. So you got to be mentally prepared to handle that.
Yeah, I remember that. Cross my fingers. Usually those last 2 weeks of winter before the first game, I'd be like, oh man, I hope it doesn't rain or snow, because if it snows, we're gonna be out of baseball for like 3 weeks.
No, in 2018, we went to New York 3 times in 2 weeks because of rain, snow, cancellations. Like, we even played a game in the snow.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that
It's
was
just
good times.
one of those things you guys have to kind of get used to. And Jacob, being from Florida, I'm sure that was just a welcome thing for you, being able to play baseball in the snow. Jacob, I want to stay with you real quick. Your first 2 years at LBC, you had 16 at bats, your freshman and sophomore years combined, and then became probably one of the best or most consistent hitters your junior and senior year. Showed some power your senior year with 9 home runs. Just really had tremendous junior and senior seasons. So, 2 questions here. How did you work on your game those first 2 seasons? Obviously, there's practice, but again, it's probably geared towards the 9 to 12 guys are going to see at bats most games. Did you ever kind of feel like, hey, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing here? And then the third one, just was there someone there pushing you, or was it all internal, or why did you stick with it?
Yeah, definitely hard at times because I felt like I should have been playing more, but Coach Horn did what he thought was best for the team. And so I just stuck through it, and I just wanted to be out on the field watching, instead of sitting there watching my teammates play and cheering them on. I enjoyed cheering them on, no, I'm not saying I didn't. And then I started rooming with Will Welsh, who any old baseball player on the team. He just got me in the weight room more, showed me how to work out more, get stronger, show me tricks he does when he's in the plate, and also like different drills to continue hitting and just getting better. And I just kept working at it until I finally made the starting lineup junior year.
And so when that happens, do you feel like you need to prove something right away, or this is going to get taken from me, or I have to perform every time, or was there an ease and a calm there once you had finally reached that starting spot, because you're a pretty decent defender as well?
Defensively, I knew I was fine, but it was hitting that always felt like I always had something on my back. Like if I didn't perform, if I went 0 for 4, or maybe next game I have to go 4 for 4 to make it up, and it always felt like there was that thing on my back. But then senior year, I was perfectly fine. I didn't have a worry, and I was easy, and everything was good.
Tyler, kind of along those same lines, there's you did play most of your 4 years. You kind of hit a little bit as a freshman and figured out you couldn't do that anymore.
I have a home run though. I do have a home run. So I forget that.
So, but on the mound, there's ups and downs for every pitcher throughout the course of a year, throughout the course of a week, throughout the course of especially a 4-year career like yours. What are some things that you did to kind of right the ship when you were struggling? Was there someone you talked to? How did you kind of do that? Pitching is just as much mental as it is physical.
Yeah. When I was struggling, I would really try to clear my headspace a little bit. Kind of just remember a big thing for me when I was struggling, I would overthink kind of what I was trying to do, and I needed to just get back to kind of playing baseball, pitching, what I knew from it. I was actually a little bit of a unique situation. I wasn't a straight up PO until I actually got to college, so I didn't have as much of the coaching as some of the other guys did. So it was just talking to coaches about how I can clear my head, talking to them about mechanics, that kind of stuff. And I would try to take with me, 2 or 3 things that I felt good about during the week, 2 or 3 things I was working on, especially when I was starting my senior year, that if I was, missing high, I would, switch this. If I was missing low, I would switch this. I kind of have these things in the back of my head where I could, make some adjustments and try to get back on track. But
and the teams that you guys did play on, you guys were able to do a good job of both keeping it light, but there was also a determination and a focus about the team throughout the season as well. Who were some of the leaders throughout the years that kind of guided the program? But then at the same time, how do you transition new guys into leadership roles each and every year?
Shank.
I'll let you handle the transition part, Greenlee, but leaders, I would say Nate Burns was a big leader for us. He was good, level-headed, knew how to get us to buy in and fire us up when we needed to. Then Zach Leonard, Nate Stafiri, JJ, Josh Mayer especially, he was a leader for a long time. Those guys just could sit there and get us to buy in. They told us what we needed to hear, not what we necessarily always wanted to hear. So that was really encouraging. And then they always try to like get player run practices going and just step up and try to make everybody better, not just themselves.
Yeah, I would agree with those people that you mentioned. As far as transitions go, you can kind of start to see, especially as an upperclassman, like the last 2 years for Shank and I, you can kind of see who's going to start setting themselves apart as kind of like an underclassman who's going to be a good leader. And when you see those guys, you kind of want to start pouring into them more as much as you can. But yeah, just stuff like that. You see who your potential leaders are going to be, and you just want to try to develop them as much as possible and give them, good advice and kind of let them take the reins. You don't want to step on their toes. So.
Absolutely. Bob, do you have anything before we do some quick hitters with the guys?
Yeah. So Jacob, like Zach already mentioned, you're from Florida. What drew you up to Lancaster, Pennsylvania? To obviously baseball is one part of it, but like, what's it like not being real close to home for your college experience?
It was fine. Like I got away. I got out of my old hometown, so I did experience new things. Like I got to meet Amish people, which is actually kind of cool. Got to try Amish food, which is amazing. But it was definitely different at first, and I definitely struggled just because I wasn't accustomed to it. Like I saw snow really for the first time and loved it, and then I got annoyed with it after 2 days. But yeah, then once I started making friends and starting to get to know guys on the team, as Greenlee mentioned earlier, they're some of the best friends I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And it just made a transition a lot easier, made college a lot easier for me.
What drew you to Lancaster Bible College, Tyler?
So I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. I actually had another school looking at me to play basketball, believe it or not. But I decided I didn't want to play basketball because I felt like I was better at baseball than I was basketball. So I was just kind of looking at schools, kind of around the area. I knew I didn't want to go super far away. I'm a little bit of a homebody, so. And then God just kind of started directing me towards LBC. I went on a tour, felt good there. Met with Coach Horn, and him and Coach Frank started recruiting me, and then it was kind of done deal from there. I like the small atmosphere. I didn't go to a big public school, so part of me wanted to try going to like a bigger like Division I school, just to get a new experience. But I felt comfortable with the smaller setting, so I just felt like it was the right choice for me, and it was fun. Yeah.
What are I know Zach's going to hit you here with a couple like fast questions or whatever, but any memories that fully stand out to you guys from any of the years that you played on the team?
Yeah, I think Jacob touched on it earlier. The 3 weekends in a row to New York was definitely a fun one. I think it was either the week before finals week or during finals week was like the last one. So everyone's on the bus writing papers, doing all this kind of stuff. We played in the snow that year. That was interesting up at Wells College. And I think it's just funny that, we literally looked outside. It was a long trip and it was literally started snowing. I think Stafiri's like, "Are you kidding me? It's actually snowing right now. Like, it's gonna get any worse?" But it was great, and just fun memories with the guys. Yeah.
Yeah, touching up on that snow game. We were driving up there, and it was like 30 degrees, snowing on the way up, and we didn't get up there till like 10 p.m. And my room, I had Braden Elliott, Will Welsh, Trevor High in my room. In the room that we had the interconnecting doors, it was Nate Stafiri, Josh Mayer, Zach Leonard, JJ Sanchez. So we're like, dude, we're not playing tomorrow. A couple guys brought their PlayStations. We play Fortnite. And so we're not playing tomorrow. We're like, there's no way shot this happening. There's a 90% chance of snow. Like, we're good. And so we stay up till like 3 or 4 in the morning playing Fortnite. And we have to be down at breakfast at 7 a.m. So we could sleep on the way home. Like, it'll all be good. We get down to breakfast at 7 a.m. Coach Horn's like, all right, guys, get ready. We're playing today. We're like, what in the world? It's literally snow on the floor. Like, that was the first time I ever played with like a hoodie on. I had like thermal leggings, thermal compression shirt, a hoodie. Like, I've never worn that much to play a baseball game.
Is this
Yeah,
go ahead, Tyler.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if you have some to add on to that story, Bob, go ahead.
Well, no. All that I was going to say is, if Coach Horn is listening to this for the first time, is this going to be the first time he knows about that?
No.
Okay.
No, I was going to add just road trips in general, especially Myrtle Beach. I mean, we could talk for hours about the different memories we've had. Shank, me, and Will, we've all gotten together and talked, for extensive amount of times on just the memories we had. But Myrtle Beach was always just a hoot. It was a great time. A whole week just living with your teammates at Myrtle Beach. So playing baseball, and then you go home and hang out by the pool, play video games, do whatever you want to do, and then go out to eat as a team. And it's just great. Great way to start the year. You build really good relationships that last the whole season that way. And it's just a great time every year. But
Zach, I will share with you one of my memories of Shank, at least, playing baseball. It was a day that you were not there, I believe, and I got there and it was pouring down rain by the end of the game, and it just became nonsense. And Mr. Schenck here decided that, well, the game finally got called. The game finally got called, and there was quite a bit of water laying on the field, and particularly in the infield. And Jacob here decides he's just going to run around the bases in his shorts and slide in and out of the bases. That'll be one of those memories that forever etched in my mind.
I think one of my personal favorite memories, like a specific moment, would have been my sophomore year down at Myrtle. I think we were playing Methodist. Shank, correct me if I'm wrong, but it might have been. It was either we were the home team, and it was either the 9th inning or the 10th inning. I can't remember. But we had the bases loaded, tie ball game, 1 out, and we had a freshman at the plate, Michael Hill at the time, and he hit the sacrifice fly to left field, I believe, and I think it was Justin Taylor was on third base, and he scored. And I just remember the whole dugout just erupting, and it was probably like 40 degrees. We dumped the cooler on Michael, and we were just all pumped up and kind of dogpiling him out at the first baseline. It was just a great time. That's probably one of my favorite memories from, like, a specific memory from baseball. But yeah,
those are great, guys. That's awesome. Those are the memories we were looking for when we had these questions drawn up. So I think for me, if we're doing memories, I loved the Barnstormers games. Getting to play them in exhibition games. I know they didn't count, but it was kind of just like a nice day to enjoy the game of baseball. I got to bring my kids every once in a while and do some batting practice, and just a lot of fun to hang out with those guys. They're always really receptive to our college and playing them. And we've tried to make it more of an event for people to come out and watch too. So I've always enjoyed those. There's a couple of Gaudet games in there that your blood pressure goes up a little bit, and a couple of Penn State games, playing a couple of branch campuses there that you got to get into it. And they're really long days. Tyler can attest to that for keeping stats for other long days working in the athletic communications office. And when you work long days, you can either sit there and be bored, or you can get really into it. And at baseball, with guys you work with and guys student athletes you see every day, you kind of get into it. And so, get a little punchy there towards the 9th inning of a doubleheader, all day long. So, we've had some fun times there at the field.
We've gone back and listened to your end of the second game broadcast there, Freeman. Don't worry about it.
Hey, look, if they're not going to get good umpires, then you're going to deal with the broadcaster. But so couple more kind of quick things here, but maybe you mentioned the Methodist game down at Myrtle. Obviously, not a lot of people there to see that, but I remember that game. You guys being pretty excited about that victory. What are some other games maybe that come to mind quickly when you talk about best games over your 4 years? And maybe they're good or maybe they're bad. It doesn't necessarily need to be a win. I'm sure you'd like to remember those, but as student athletes who are competitive and people like us usually remember the losses a little bit more than the wins sometimes.
Yeah, I guess we'll start off on the bad note and we'll work our way up. I think the biggest loss I remember for me was my freshman year in playoffs. We kind of blew the game at the end. It was just we kind of fell apart, and just it was a heartbreaker. Let's put it that way. It would have been the first playoff win for the baseball program, I think, since we joined the NEAC, I believe. And we were all, excited going into it, and just to lose the game was pretty frustrating. But another memory I have would be, I think it was last year, my senior year, Shank and I senior year would have been against Elizabethtown. We came back and beat them in, I think, the 10th inning, and Will hit an absolute bomb down the left field line to give us the lead, and then we held it, and it was just a great team win that game. And it was just one of those exciting nail-biting games that you just remember. But
you're stepping all over our best game category that we're going to do later in the podcast. So thanks for that. I'm just kidding.
You asked that.
No, it's terrific. It's one of the best games of the year in any sport for this 18-19 year that we're going to do. So I think it's a great game. I remember watching that on live stream and things like that. It was a great game and unexpected, and our first ever win over Elizabethtown. So that's definitely a great one to bring up.
Yeah, that game hits home for me because I got the base hit to bring Will up to hit the go-ahead home run. So
hey, there you go.
I always humble him and say, if it wasn't for me, he would never have had that opportunity. You got to humble him a little.
Excellent. How about over the course of your 4 years, who's the best teammate?
Jacob Shank.
Uh,
I think one of my favorite teammates is probably Nate Stafiri. He was just a guy you could always just go to for a laugh, and we were fellow. So we hung out a lot together, hung out on the bench. We were bullpen pitchers for 3 years together, so a lot of time spent to goof off with just crack jokes, and he was probably one of my favorite teammates. In all reality, though, Schenck was one of my favorite teammates. We had a really good friendship throughout college. But
yeah, I'd say Greenlee, Will Welsh. He was my roommate, obviously. And JJ Sanchez is probably up there for me just because he's a nice, loving guy. He cares a lot about people and do anything for anybody. And it's just nice to have that teammate to go to and just comfort. I remember I had a bad game one year. Right after the game, he immediately texted me saying, "Hey man, you're good," like just encouraging me and bringing me back up.
That's awesome.
I agree with that. JJ was a great leader. Was our catcher, so I worked with him a lot too. Same thing though, he would text you after a bad game. Justin was another good teammate. Justin Taylor. Nate Burns was a great leader on our team for 2 years when I was there. So we had a lot of really good guys that we played with over those 4 years that I'm thankful I had the opportunity to play with for sure.
Absolutely. I think those names they probably check a lot of boxes for a lot of the guys who've been through the program the past 4, 5, 6 years. Just leadership there, Nate Burns and JJ and things like that. Those guys are probably on there for a lot of people. Last one, who was the best player, whether it be a pitcher, hitter, fielder? Who was the best player you guys played with?
Man, I'd say that's a good question. I think the best pitcher's tough because I played with Zach Leonard and Nate Burns, and they were both really good pitchers. So I'm gonna give a tie. I'm not gonna give one of them the satisfaction of being better. The best all-around player. That's a tough question because It's probably a toss-up between Will and Justin all around. Eric Carroll was also really good. Eric was solid both offensively and defensively. And so those three guys stick out to me for sure as being the top three guys. But
yeah, I'd have to say it's a toss-up between Will and JT. I would say Will had a lot more power than JT, but like JT could also hit a ball anywhere on the field and make it look smooth. So, and best pitcher, I would say Zach Leonard, just because he was more consistent. Nate Burns was fantastic and loved watching him pitch, but I just feel like Leonard has a little bit more of an edge on him. He might hate me for that, but
That's good. Bob and I have been dancing around all these questions as well over the past 8 weeks. So it's okay.
I hope the listeners have brushed up on their baseball nicknames because we've been using a lot of them. So
yeah.
No, it's great. I just think it's really, I just like to hear when the student athletes, because everybody knows, or everybody has a good idea, and it's, it is subjective obviously, but at the same time, I don't think anyone's going to be heartbroken to hear that they're not above Justin Taylor and Will Welsh over the past couple of years. That these are some of the best players we've ever had in the program, and we're going to get to some of Will's numbers later in the podcast when we talk about him a little bit. But you don't stumble into almost 200 hits and almost 40 home runs, so it's okay if you're having trouble not giving him the benefit. So, yeah. But
I remember. I think it was my freshman year down in Myrtle. Justin just had an absolutely incredible week. He hit like 7 home runs in like 5 games. It was crazy. But that just kind of gives you the idea of the kind of freak athlete he was. But
no, absolutely. It's right on.
Yeah.
Moving away just a bit from baseball, you guys are both student workers with us. We had Hannah Geip and Courtney Goyak on to talk about some student worker things recently, and they enjoyed their experiences and things like that. What did you guys take away from some of those experiences, and maybe a game or two that comes to mind that you worked at that you enjoyed over your 4 years?
Well, Freeman, I worked pretty closely with you, so I learned a lot about sport communication and sports information director, and I took a lot of valuable lessons away from that. Problem solving. There's a lot of games we had to be kind of scrambling towards game time to get everything set up, and something would go wrong and you had to figure it out. And sometimes you didn't always know what to do. You had to kind of figure it out. So a lot of good problem solving skills that way. It was fun to learn that you could have a good time working. I know I had a lot of fun working with you, with Shank. We were joking around earlier about him not working very often, but Shank, it was fun to work with everyone of the student workers, and we're just having a good time joking around with Bob and you up on the announcer's booth and trying to make you laugh while you're trying to call the game. Those are good memories that I have, but it was just a great experience and taught you how to work hard, but also have a good time working.
The best part for me was just being able to sit like sideline with the other athletes and just watching them and put all their hard work in and finally accomplish on the field, and just being able to watch them celebrate, watch them go through their trials as well, and how they stood up and still represented God pretty well, even though everybody had those trials together.
That's great. I think you guys are, obviously, Tyler, you worked in our department, and there's lots of problem solving because there's lots of problems. So
lots of problems.
You guys, you did great though. We mentioned you when we talked about Pete Stover a couple of weeks ago, and just how helpful he was and instrumental in our department that way. But also too, Jacob, you got to, run lines for soccer, and I'm pretty sure you helped out with volleyball a decent amount too. I mean, you saw some of our best teams over the course of your 4 years, especially working some volleyball and things like that. Like, to be that close to the action is a big thing. And the men's soccer team, you don't realize how actually rough soccer is until you're standing along the sidelines and they're yelling at you for the ball and things like that. And it takes a little bit to get to learn how to do that the right way. So you guys are some of the better student workers we had. I know that's for sure. So what are you guys up to now? Tyler, what are you guys up to now?
So right now, I am working for my uncle. He has a furniture and courier delivery business. So I'm driving truck all over God's green earth. I was just down in Tennessee about 2 weeks ago, and it was actually cool. We talk about these connections we make on, teams and stuff. Driving through Tennessee, I got a text from Nate Burns actually saying, "Hey, he posted a story on Snapchat or something. He saw us in Tennessee. He said, 'Hey, what are you doing in Tennessee?' I had a delivery down there. Well, on my way home, I actually ended up staying at his apartment, sleeping there the night, hanging out with him. So it was just kind of cool. Like, you make those connections and people move and all over the place. And you kind of, I know, and Shank knows people in a lot of states now. And it's kind of cool to have those connections. But yeah, so I'm working for my uncle doing that. And that's kind of where I'm at for now. But yeah, it's going well.
Excellent.
I'm working at a company called Fastenal, and it's industrial and construction sales. And I was actually working with Nate Stafiri for a while. Speaking of connections, he was one who helped get me the job, and we worked together for over a year. So it was really cool just to be able to work with him again and be around him more.
Anything else happening in your life there, Jacob, that you want to mention?
I am getting married in April. That is.
I'm in the wedding. I'm in the wedding.
He is in the wedding.
Shout out to me.
We'll have that live for you on the Chargers Sports Network. So
Freeman broadcasting the wedding. I can't wait.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't go longer than the doubleheader, so it doesn't get a little chippy at the end there. But,
you invite me, and you see where these things happen. So.
And he'll not be afraid to call things as he sees it. So
that's right. Awesome. Hey, well, we really appreciate you guys coming on, kind of talk about it. Bob, do you have anything else before we?
I don't right now. Thanks guys for being a part of this, and we truly, like Zach and I have talked about this last week and even offline too. Just hearing from former athletes and just reconnecting is always fun, and it's great having you guys both in the area that we can do this even a little bit more than we normally do. So, but yeah, thanks for being here tonight and sharing some of your thoughts and memories.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you real soon.
Before I go, I do have one thing to mention.
Sure.
My favorite game, I think we're playing Penn College. The shortstop goes to flip it to the second baseman, misses. And we get down by 1 run. Will Welch comes up to bat. Very next pitch, he hits the farthest ball I've probably ever seen hit. And we went back and watched the broadcast, and all we hear is Freeman shout, "He hit that one all the way to Ephrata." And we came back and won that game.
That was a great game. I forgot about that. That was a great game. Yeah. And I don't know why they missed that double play. I don't know why he missed the ball. It was just, and then Will's standing there on deck, and Will was one of those players where, and Justin had this too, and before you guys were on the team, Matt Talercio had this. Every once in a while, you just walk up to the plate and you knew, like, you just kind of I wonder how far this ball's going to go. And sure enough, he hits it there. And it was just kind of incredible that, you have to have these premonitions every once in a while of something good that's going to happen. And yeah, he crushed it, and not much else to say. Other than that ball is still going, by the way.
Yeah, I believe it. I do remember watching that as a team in the team room and listening to your call on that home run. Just all of us were just cracking up laughing. It was great. Yeah, good times.
That's great. Well, thanks guys for coming on. We really appreciated it, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yep. Hey, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
All right, so that was Tyler Greenlee and Jacob Shank from the baseball program here from the past couple years, and they were on some really good teams. So we've talked about them the last couple of years. We're going to get to them here in a little bit. A bit of a down year, but still some pretty good players on the team for sure. And just every once in a while, just lost the wrong NEAC game and didn't get into the playoffs for a couple of times. But some good teams that they were a part of, and good guys to talk to about LBC culture and the baseball program for sure. So, Bob, you ready to get into the 2018-19 academic year?
Absolutely. Let's take some time to highlight these different teams. And this is an exciting year. It's an expansion year for LBC athletics, and I know we're going to hit a couple of those new first teams this year.
Absolutely. It's a good year. It's a year where if I told you that we're going to win two NEAC championships in 2018-19, coming off of the 17-18 year, you're probably thinking, oh, men's basketball reloaded. They did it again. That's great. Or, hey, the volleyball team broke through again. Or, hey, we had a women's sport come out of nowhere and this and that. And no, actually, those two champions are men's cross country and men's tennis win the NEAC in 2018-19. So we'll get to those here in a little bit. But I laughed at the time, and I still think it's funny that those two teams won the same year. We started off this decade in review project, 8 weeks ago or whatever, 9 weeks ago, and we're begging people to stay with us on cross country, stay with us on tennis. I
Yeah.
promise, as the person who coached the tennis team earlier in the decade, like winning the NEAC championship, that was no. So, it's so great to have the success that they did. So we'll start like we have always with men's soccer. They went 12-10-1, 9-2 in the NEAC. The 9 wins were the most ever in program history in conference play. So 12-10-1 is deceiving, but they actually lost their last 4 games of the season, but they were all in postseason play. So they were technically at one point 12-6-1, which sounds a lot better. But then when you get to some of the teams they played, you'll understand what happened here. So They did beat Penn College in the NEAC semifinals before losing a close game to Penn State Abington in the NEAC final. I know even just bringing that up to some of the guys makes them shiver, and they get flush, and they make a fist, and they don't want to talk about it. So a very good game down there in Abington that the guys kept with them for the entire offseason and into the next season as well.
Yeah. Oh man, that was a game beyond belief. And I was able to get down to that game, and that game could have went either direction. There's no doubt about it, but Abington had home field, and it proved to benefit them that night as well. Or that afternoon. So what a game it was.
Right. So and the next game was great too. There we went to the NCCAA Midwest Region Final against Grace, who plays in the NAIA and is a level above us, I would say. And we're actually beating them 2-1 with 5 minutes to go, and they scored twice in the final 4:45, I think, of the game, and we lost 3-2. But off of the coattails of that, we got an at-large bid to the NCCA Division I national tournament and went there for the first time ever, and played Southwestern, the number 1 team in the country, really tough, and lost 2-0, and then lost 2-1 to Judson, who was the 6th ranked team in that tournament as well. So again, you see 4 losses at the end of that season, but probably could have won 2 of them, and the other 2 were against scholarship schools that have international players on them, and we still made it competitive for the most part. So this is a really good team. I know that they wanted to do a lot more in terms of hardware and trophies and advancing, but just short. But I think this is a season probably that the men's soccer program is still building off of, and they learned so much during this 2018 season that they've kind of kept it with them, and this is where they're going. This is how they're going to get to new heights, I should say, in the program, based off of the things they learned during this season.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. Like this is just a really strong program at this point now. Not only are they recruiting a lot of players, but the team is growing, and the growth and the skill level of the players that are coming in. This is when we have finally seen men's soccer show what off-season work really looks like, because they came in prepared. And like you said, even though there's 4 losses there right at the end of the year, they are more prepared than they've ever been, and it's been incredible to watch. And it's always that so close. Like you talked about it for weeks about how basketball had those building blocks of how they kept going and going and going. Soccer had that for years. There were some really good teams earlier in the decade. It's not that men's soccer has been a bad program at all, but this is definitely the time that we're starting to see this team starting to come together and say, I'm not letting that happen again. And if it does happen again, then they're letting that memory carry them over to say, we're gonna get there. And I really do believe they are gonna get there.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. It's quick stats on this year. Chad Tolson, 8 goals. Jared Jordan, 4 goals, 4 assists. Joel Hughes, Rusty Rastine, Raman McGee all had 4 goals. Baversdorf, 3 goals, 5 assists. 13 players had at least 1 goal. It's one of the more balanced teams we've had. They had lots of scoring, lots of potential, can move guys in and out, different positions, things like that. And again, a lot of the guys that are on this team are still with the program and still take some of these things with them as they go. Women's soccer, they were 7-2, 6-3-2 in the conference, lost 1-0 to Casanova in the NEAC quarterfinals. They were 5-1-1 over their final 7 games in the regular season. A strange year. If they didn't score, obviously they didn't score. They did it in a big way, and then when they did score, they did that in a big way too. So we were actually shut out 8 times, but then also shut the opponent out 6 times, and we had games where we scored 4 and 5 and 7 goals, and then we wouldn't score for a week and a half. And it was an up and down year for sure. That ended with a 500 record. Brianna Hoover 6 goals, Maggie Arnold 6 goals, Maddie Dion, who we're going to talk about in a little while, 4 goals, 4 assists. Kayla Hubbard 4 goals in her first year. They kind of even did a little bit better than the men. They had 15 players score at least 1 goal. So again, there was some promise there with this 2018 team. It kind of caught some of the seniors, Maddie Dion, Michaela Ragsdale, I guess she was Michaela Landis at the time, and Kirsten Hatch. They were kind of holdovers, about the only holdovers from that previous team that had gone to the NEAC final their sophomore year. And so you still had some talent there, and then just kind of this major influx of new players trying to find their way up the roster to a starting spot. So I should mention Aaron Mikula, 1.07 goals against average as well, and had a pretty good record in goal there for the Chargers too.
Yep. Women's soccer somehow always just seems to be in the mix for playoffs at the end of the season. And now it is the time for them to be truly building on what they've been doing and start moving forward. So, and there's so much potential in that program too.
Absolutely. Moving to women's volleyball. This is the banner year for women's volleyball. Hannah and Courtney were upset they didn't get to talk about this year, so we'll try our hardest to talk about it for them. 9-2 in the NEAC. They were 9-1 at home that year. They beat Wells 3-2 in the NEAC semifinals. We'll mention that game again in best game, in the best game category. They were down 2-1, down 2-1 in the NEAC semifinals. Came back and won the 4th and 5th set before losing to Morrisville State, who was really good that year in the NEAC final. They started the year 0-3 actually, and then won 15 of 17 matches to the middle of October. Hannah Geip, who we had a couple weeks ago here on the podcast, 237 kills. Courtney Goyak, 216 kills, 102 blocks. Aaliyah Hayworth had 192 kills, 199 digs. Ashton Bauslog, 195 kills. Becca Roberts had 120 kills and 80 blocks. Allison Shuey, this is probably her best year, 77 kills, 819 assists, 81 blocks, kind of did a little bit of everything for the Chargers. And then Hannah Thompson had 439 digs and 56 assists, and Jenny Mulvey had 48 aces as well. So they had a lot of offense, balanced offense from different players, but they did a lot of little things right, whether it be timely aces, still good defensively, but they played so loose. That's directly correlated with Micah Heron. This is his first year as the coach. Just kind of told them to relax and take it easy and be determined, but at the same time, just play volleyball. And it came through all the time. They had so much fun playing, but they were honestly, they didn't freeze up in the big moments. You see that in the win against Wells. Teams in the past had frozen probably in the big moments. Mm-hmm. This team did not, and it took them to 21 wins, which is a program record, and a really, really good season.
And what's like you mentioned Micah being this is his first year coaching. What's crazy is the fact that for some of these players, this was the 3rd coach in 3 years, mm-hmm. and for the team to be as successful as they were. Now Micah was the assistant coach the previous year. But it still is learning what's my coach want from me and what is his style of coaching going to be compared to the coaches of the past that we had and everything. For them to be as successful as they were is just a true testament to the quality of players that they were, and also the ability for Micah to coach them to get to the spot that they were in, to be as successful as they were. So the other coaches did a great job. They laid a great foundation, and it was an exciting time for this team.
It really was. It was, and like you said, the foundation of defense was built from Lauren Bewley. The foundation of kind of being a team together was built by Jackie Smith, and then Micah kind of came and put them all together, and it really worked out that year. And it was a team that was hungry to win as well. I think that went a long way and helped too. And it helps when you can have Courtney Goyak in the middle
Yeah.
and Becca Roberts in the middle to block. I mean, frankly, they had to combine 182 blocks, and then Allison Shuey could block as well. I mean, it was just a really, really good defensive team,
Yep.
and they caused a lot of problems for a lot of teams.
Yep.
Men's cross country, again, mentioned it, NEAC champions in 2018. They won the team championship. They also had the individual champion with Ebenezer Abebe. Thatcher Kroeb was second. Tanner Kroeb was sixth at the NEAC championships. They were second at the Charger Invitational with 15 teams there, and then they were second at the MSMC Invite in late September in upstate New York. There was 28 teams at that race, and we finished second. So it was a great team. It was the best team we've ever had. They had talent. It was Coach Gaiman's finest coaching hour. They put all of their eggs in a lot of baskets for that NEAC championship race, and it paid off. Yeah, in a big way, and they really, really ran well that morning, and we got to host that, and so
Yeah.
that was fun as well.
Even though the weather wasn't real cooperative that day, we still did get to host it, and there's nothing better than being able to, when you're hosting the event, to celebrate the victory of that team, and that truly was a blast, and to see the work that these guys had been putting in for the last 2, 3, 4 years. And what Ryan Gaiman was able to do, and granted, he had some guys that just really were very skilled runners. There's no doubt about it. But you can't just take skilled runners and like it all has to come together at the right time, and it did for the guys on this team.
Should have mentioned the NEAC championships with Tyler. That's the day I made him ride on the back of the John Deere Gator with a GoPro and told him to film the best he could. And we live streamed the front of the pack in the pouring rain. And I'm not sure he's ever forgiven me for that. But nevertheless, we had some live stream of the cross country race, and not many people can say they've done that. So we'll take it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The women's cross country team was 8th at the NEAC championships. Judith Breeze and Kaylee Boger finished 11th and 13th respectively. They had a couple top 10 finishes that year as well. 2 good runners for the Chargers. Not a lot of depth there on that team, but they performed well. Judith continued to be a leader through this year, senior on the team this year. So good season for them as well. And our last fall sport, the newest one, our first expansion, as Bob mentioned earlier, was the field hockey team. We're not going to dwell too much on the record, which was 0-13, or some of their games, but at the same time, we added field hockey. We hadn't had it since the mid 1980s, and we brought it back. And it was nice to see field hockey back at LBC. As someone who likes field hockey and whose wife played field hockey, I'd always been in Pete's ear about adding field hockey, and we were able to. And Coach Elliott took the program and had some recruits that first year, and they got it on the board, and we're going to talk about them next week for the 2019 season. And it's a work in progress still, but there's way more positives than negatives with the program. And this year was a big year to have that and kind of introduce field hockey to a couple of people who hadn't seen it before, which was always fun. And it's just nice to have the sport back on the campus.
Yeah, I think one of the real special moments for that year was the first or second game. We invited back previous Lancaster Bible College field hockey players, and a number of them came out, and we recognized them and celebrated what they had done in the past. But then they were there cheering on this brand new team to Lancaster Bible College, the addition of field hockey again, and that was a real special day. I know that Coach Elliott has worked hard to do that, and it was a growing year. Obviously, Coach Elliott got hired fairly late in that spring, and she did the best that she could with the ladies that she had, and we have seen growth in that program, and I expect to see that program just continue to grow and have great success, hopefully, in the future.
Homecoming that year, we'll take a break here and talk about homecoming quickly. It was September 29th, 2018. The women's volleyball team actually played the Friday afternoon before, beat Berks 3-0. Men's soccer lost in double overtime to Cuca. Dan Baversdorf had the goal for the Chargers that day, and women's soccer lost to Cuca 3-0 that afternoon. That day does not stick out to me very much. Maybe it's because of the losses.
I think the losses probably helped that one.
I
Make
guess
us
I
skip
remember
over that.
I do remember. I mean, obviously, we're gonna get to it here in a little bit, but we had opened Donald H. Funk Field about
Yes.
9 days prior to that, so we did have homecoming at Donald H. Funk Field, which was great, and everyone was really, really excited and things like that. But those games don't really stick out to me. I can kind of remember the men's soccer game going to double overtime, but yeah, the losses probably don't help.
Yeah, right.
Moving to the winter, men's basketball. This is the year Andrew Wingreen coached the Chargers. They finished 14-13 overall, 11-5 in NEAC play. They did win the NEAC South Division, but lost to SUNY Poly 67-64 in the NEAC semifinals, and then lost to Cincinnati Christian 78-75 in the NCCAA Midwest region. I believe it was the semifinals. An up and down year for the team. So their last 7 losses were all by 7 points or less. So there's a scenario where this team, the record is a lot better. There's a scenario in which they win the NEAC. There's a scenario in which they go to the NCCAA Division I national tournament. There's if you play this season out a couple times, you could get some different results here. Unfortunately, we're going to get to when we talk about best game. They probably played their best game on February 2nd, and everything after that was not very good.
Yeah.
And they peaked just a little bit too early. Probably relied on a couple of people a little too much, and it cost them there down the stretch. And they had a hard time getting their mojo back. And frankly, they didn't after a while. So. Quentin Davis, want to mention, he had 38 points and 12 rebounds in a loss to Wells on February 9th. That's one of the better games we've had in recent history for the men's basketball program. He averaged 16.1 points a game, 9.5 rebounds a game, and added 60 steals that year. Jordan Shoebridge, his freshman year, 13.6 points per game, 93 pointers. I think that's top 3 all time in program history for 3-pointers in a season. Luke Beers, 10.1 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, and then Britton Beachy and Alex Witt, each about 8 points per game. So there was some balance there. Not sure on the depth after you get to 6 or 7 guys there, but a team that, like I said, the record's a little deceiving, and I don't know if it's a little deceiving in a good way or a bad way, because you look at those last 7 games and you think maybe they did overachieve earlier in the year. Then if you did look at the first part of the year, you think, man, what could have been there at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. They peaked at the wrong time. And normally teams are usually hitting their groove in the last 2 weeks of their season. And these guys kind of hit their groove a little earlier in the season than what we would have hoped for. And I'm sure what they would have hoped for. You look at those 2 losses there in the playoff games in the NEAC semis and the Midwest region playoff game to Cincinnati Christian, both by 3 points, and both like those games could have went either direction at the end of the game. But that also was a little bit telling of the type of season that the team had as well. So
women's basketball, they went 9-16 that year, 7-9 in the NEAC. First time they haven't made the postseason in NEAC play since we joined the NEAC. First time under 500 since the 2010-11 season. They were 3-15 at one point and finished. They won 6 of their last 7 games. So a complete reversal of the men's season there. They even beat Cuca, who was the NEAC's top team, on February 10th. Caitlin Hickey, 18.2 points per game. Courtney Goyak, 11.2 points, 15.8 rebounds per game. And Lizzie Tilton, a good year, 8.5 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 4.2 assists per contest. So a team that just waited a little bit too long to peak, perhaps. There's a scenario in which they make the playoffs if there's another week or 2 in the season. So they really got to their groove there at the end of the year, and were a tough out for some teams.
Well, sure, and isn't part of the problem was how the NEAC playoffs were set up that year too?
Correct.
You know, the wins that they were getting were against all their North opponents, and that wasn't helping them in the playoff scenario. They needed to be beating the South opponents, and it is what it is. And you got to win. They knew that scenario. They knew the games that they had to win, and somehow we just didn't pull out the wins when we needed them to.
Absolutely, you have a very good memory there, Bob. That's right. We played 3 NEAC South games before Christmas that year and lost them all, and basically had to go 7-0 in NEAC South Division play after Christmas, and just didn't do that. And then all of a sudden we started winning these games. But like you said, it was against a lot of North teams or the other bad teams in the South who we couldn't catch the other teams. So
Yep.
it was a good end of the year and led probably into some good things for last year's team as well.
Yep.
The last team of the winter, the men's volleyball program.
Do we have to talk about this?
Well, yeah, we're cruising through this one, but man, they were 26-5 overall, 10-0 in the NEAC. They won 3-0 over Cuke in the NEAC semifinals before losing to Wells 3-2 in the NEAC final. And they won 16-17 matches heading into the NEAC final. They were up 2-0 in the NEAC final and just couldn't hold on against Wells, who was very good as well that year. And lost in the NEAC final. I am reminded as the Masters starts today that the last time the Masters were played was this weekend, actually, in 2019, in April 2019, and Tiger Woods won. And they had moved up the final round of the Masters on that Sunday, the same as the NEAC men's volleyball final. I'm not comparing the two. They moved that up so because there was rain coming in Georgia. So they moved it up, and Tiger's on the leaderboard, and everyone wants to watch. I wanted to watch. And the crowd, everyone had their phones out watching the Masters, and we're up 2-0, so I'm gonna take a break here and kind of watch the golf. I mentioned this to Jay today, and he says, "No, the crowd was into it." I said, "No, I think they were cheering for Tiger." But anyway, so
if you hadn't brought that up, I was going to as well. I'm like, the irony that we're talking about this today on the first day of the Masters.
I know.
And
so,
yeah,
it was a really, really good team. They deserved a better fate. Nate Miller, 422 kills, NEAC Player of the Year again. Cole Horst, 258 kills, 165 digs. Benjamin Erb, 156 kills. Dan Kreider, 136 kills, 72 blocks. Caleb Ansel had 952 assists, 47 blocks. Zeke Hallman, 88 blocks. Kurt Macias, 193 digs. I mean, the team was loaded. They beat teams up and down all season long. It was just unfortunate the way that it ended. I don't know what would have happened in the NCAA tournament. Wells went and won a match and had Stevens on the ropes in the NEAC quarterfinals as well before Stevens came back and beat them. So they got as far as we did the previous year, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But this is another one that, like we talked last week with Derek, the 2020 team where their season got cut short was using this loss as motivation the same way.
Right.
The 18 team used 17's loss. So
Yep.
We seem to be in an every other pattern, which I don't know if it's good or bad, but seems to be the pattern lately.
Yeah, this team really was stacked, and the problem with the NCAA men's volleyball is there's just limited amounts of teams, and they're only taking 16 or 18 teams or whatever. And I think there's 3 at larges, something
maybe,
like that. If that. And so you really have to win your conference to get in here. Because, if it was a larger at-large opportunities, yeah, there might have been a chance that these guys could have got in if it was a bigger tournament and everything. But there just there was no room for them to go to that tournament that year. So that Wells loss, that one still hurts. But I clearly remember we're sitting around, we're watching the Masters take place at the same time as men's volleyball is happening, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what is going on here? Why are we now tied 2-2 heading into the 5th set? And we lost the last 3 points of that 5th set, something like that.
It was close, and then it was over. I mean,
I think it was like 12-12, and then all of a sudden 15-12, and it's like, how did this just happen?
Right. I had a Wells father who I've gotten to know pretty good over the past couple of years. He sat next to me and he had the Masters on, and we were watching that end the match and kind of going back and forth and things like that. And all of a sudden it's 14-12 and they won the point, and it's really, really quiet all of a sudden in the gym, and the team that is not wearing your jerseys is really, really excited. And it was just a weird thing that year. We hadn't lost in a really long time, and people just weren't expecting it. So quickly moving to the spring.
Yeah.
The baseball team was 12-28 and 10 in the NEAC, did not make the postseason. Won 5 of 6 during the regular season in a stretch there, including a sweep of Gaidet. They defeated the Bison 74-17 over the 3-game series. I do remember that. The guys mentioned the win over E-Town, 6-5 win in 10 innings on April 9th. That was a big win. Will Welsh hit 453, 58 hits, 43 runs batted in, 9 home runs, 42 runs. Jacob Schenck, we just had on, hit 366, 48 hits, 39 runs knocked in, scored 31 runs, added 9 home runs as well. Josh Softly at 364 his freshman year with 47 hits. Luis Padilla Jr. had hit 345, had 30 hits as well. And Dan Zimmerman was 5-5 on the mound, 60 strikeouts in 51 1/3 innings pitched. A good team, just again, lost the wrong games in NEAC play, and you get to a certain point in the season where you can't lose anymore, and they just couldn't do it, couldn't get it back over the hump.
Yep, for sure. I think all of our teams have hope and bright futures. It's some seasons go your way and other ones don't, and this was a year that it didn't go the way for men's baseball the way the coach would love to see that go. So
yeah. Softball was 11-23, 5-13 in the NEAC. Won 4-6 games in early April. Nicole DeCook hit 368 with 39 hits, 23 runs knocked in. She had 12 doubles that year as well. Zoe Sen hit 324 with 33 hits, 26 runs scored. Martina McCulley 277 with 28 hits, 24 runs scored, and Morgan Burkholder, hit 269 with 28 hits that year as well. Women's lacrosse was 3-14, 2-7 in the NEAC. Also did not make the postseason. Lost 2 one-goal games. Seems to be a trend with the women's lacrosse team over the past couple of years. Hannah Thompson had 67 goals, 125 draw controls, a program record for one season. Reagan Horst had 48 goals that year, and Kaylee Boger, who we mentioned with women's cross country, she played women's lacrosse as well and had 17 goals and 7 assists. Quickly to women's tennis, 7-5 overall, 3-1 in the NEAC. They lost in the NEAC final to Penn State Abington 5-3. Kayla Hubbard was the co-NEAC Rookie of the Year. She won the #1 doubles NEAC championship with Greta Strunk. Haley Fischel was the #4 NEAC champion, Flight 4, I should say. And then Kennedy Berkheimer was the Flight 6 NEAC champion. Moving to the men quickly there, tennis. They were the NEAC champions, as we mentioned earlier. They were 9-4 overall, 4-0 in the NEAC. They beat Penn State Abington 5-4 in the NEAC final, and we're getting texts from Darren Rawls about that, and it was great. They won, and then they went and lost to Thomas up in Maine. I think they played the match in Massachusetts, but Thomas is from Maine. That's the NEAC final, the North Atlantic Conference. We are combined with them for tennis because neither conference has enough teams for an automatic bid. Ming Bowser was the Flight 4 singles NEAC champion. And then wanted to mention Yancey and Doris Butler. They were the Flight 3 doubles champions, and they were 12-0 in doubles play that year. So it was a great year for the Butler brothers and the men's tennis team that year. And then golf, men's golf, our first year as the men's golf program. We got 8th the NEAC championships. Teddy Thompson, Benny Raymond played well that year. Just great. Again, like field hockey, not overly concerned about winning that first year, just getting the sport started, played in a couple tournaments, played in the NEAC championships, actually at Fox Chase there in Stevens, PA that year. And just a lot of fun to get that sport off the ground. And, the men's tennis, women's tennis teams were successful there in the spring, but it was a pretty good spring.
Yeah, it was. That is some of the best tennis teams that we've ever had. And they were team efforts too,
Right.
Like when you're saying the fact that, the Flight 4, Flight 6 champions, hey, they matter. And every match counts. And you got your Flight 4 champion and the overall NEAC champions for the men. What incredible to go 12-0 in doubles play too. That's pretty incredible to watch and see. So the Butler brothers, they're actually a lot of fun to watch, and I still can't tell the two of them apart.
No, I try. I've been trying my hardest.
Yeah.
Moving to our categories here quickly, we mentioned a lot of this stuff already, but best game, it's kind of hard to have tennis and cross country as a game, and we didn't see the NEAC final, but I did want to mention them as good races. And the men's cross country race in the NEAC final, the NEAC championship was fun in the rain, and then we went inside and it was much better. But did want to mention those. October 16th, men's soccer, 2-1 win over Penn College. Chad Tolson tied it in the 58th minute, and Joel Hughes won it with about a minute 20 to go. It was believed it was the first night game at Donald H. Funk Field against Penn College that night. And then it was a big win in the standings, kind of separated us from Penn College in the standings as well. We had women's volleyball that night, so I didn't make it out until late in the second half. And actually, I got a picture of Joel winning the game with that kick. So that was fortunate, but I was not out there for the whole game.
Yep.
The next one is women's soccer, October 24th. Not much of a game, so much as what happened in the game. We beat Guyette 7-0 on senior night, but one of the seniors that night was Maddie Dion, and she scored a hat trick. She scored the first 3 goals of the game. She came into the game with 3 career goals and scored 3 goals in the first half, and for a hat trick. I just wanted to mention, this is kind of a bridge into mentioning just how talented she was as a player for LBC for 4 years. She was a defender technically, but she made more full field runs to either get up in the play or get back into the play than about any player I can remember in our program's history in the past 12 years that I've seen anyway. She was really, really good. She was short, but that did not deter her at all. She was tough. I don't recall her missing any games, maybe 1 or 2, but I don't know. And she's a tough player who played on some good teams and was a really good defender. Her and Michaela Ragsdale, then Michaela Landis, and Kirsten Hatch, the 3 of them kind of buddied around for 4 years, but they were really good players on the defensive end and in the midfield for us. And don't have the stats necessarily. You probably wouldn't find them on many stat sheets, but as someone who saw their whole careers, I wanted to be out there that they were really, really good. And this is a good night for Maddie.
Well, the word that I would have automatically used with Maddie, like you have said, is tough. Like, she did not back down from anybody. She was quiet. She was like one of those silent but deadly defenders that very tenacious, and she's gonna not give up the ball very easily. So absolutely.
And now married to Alex Witt, who I would probably tell you is one of the more tenacious and tough basketball players we've had over the past decade as well.
Yep.
Women's volleyball, November 3rd. Again, we mentioned the 3-2 win over Wells. They trailed 2-1 in the NEAC semifinals and then came back and won the 4th set 28-26 and the 5th set 18-16. I vividly remember following the live stats on that and refreshing and making sure I had everything up to date, and big win there. Next one's February 2nd. We mentioned men's basketball probably peaking too early. Well, this is the peak. We beat Morrisville State on February 2nd in Lancaster, 89-77. It was Morrisville State's only NEAC loss that whole year, including the postseason. They won the NEAC that year. Shoebridge had 22. Alex Witt, who we just mentioned, and Quentin Davis had 19 points apiece. A great win, and you leave the gym that day thinking, wow, we're going to do it again. I can't believe this is happening. But the best team who hadn't lost all year long in the NEAC, we just beat them. It was a good game, but we were the better team that day, and you're thinking this is great. And I don't know that we won another NEAC game, maybe one more.
Yeah.
So it was such a strange month, the rest of that month for men's basketball.
Yep.
Women's basketball, this is also a senior day game. They beat Penn State Abington 67-61. They trailed by 11 in the third quarter, and Becca Lucente caught fire and hit 5 3-pointers. And Courtney Goyak had 22 points and 26 rebounds in her final game as a Charger, and the LBC won by 6 over a team that was going to the playoffs. So a great way to end the year. Men's volleyball, or actually I should mention baseball first, the April 9th game against Elizabethtown, first ever win over E-Town. We scored 3 runs in the 9th and then another run in the 10th to win it. A great day for the guys. And again, like we talked about with the 2 guys earlier, I remember watching this game on live stream, and it was a great game.
Yeah, that's how I was watching it too. And I was like, wait, is this happening? Are we really doing this and stuff? It was a game that just kept going and going and going though too. It was a long game.
For sure.
It went late.
Yeah, next week we're going to talk about the Lebanon Valley game that went even later, which is crazy. Then the last one, it's a loss. We've had some losses in our best game category, but it is the men's volleyball NEAC final where we lost to Wells. It was a great match. I would put it up there with probably one of the better NEAC contests featuring any 2 teams in terms of skill and talent of 2 teams in the NEAC. If you want to talk about some of the Morrisville State LBC basketball games, sure. But not both teams. Those years we beat Morrisville State 15-16, Morrisville State wasn't as good as us. The years that they beat us, we weren't as good as them. The year we played in Gallaudet, I'm not sure either team was good. But maybe the 17-18 final, but there wasn't talent on the floor like this. I mean, you've got Caden O'Laughlin from Wells, a couple of their other guys, Nate Miller, Cole Horst, other guys we had too. You've got guys who are all conference, NCAA, Division III, all Americans on both sides of the floor. So probably one of the better competitions in NEAC history, if you're asking me.
Oh, for sure. And both these teams, not only like Wells goes on and they win a game in the NEAC, or not the NEAC, the NCAA tournament, but they both come back loaded for bear the next year. We're going to talk about it. We never got to play them in 20, but they were just as good in 2020. And I think, as you have mentioned, the loss in that final sets our men up to say, we're not losing to Wells again in men's volleyball.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Maybe we'll get a chance to see that this year. Who knows? But that would be great. Biggest advancement for LBC, a couple here. We talked about adding field hockey and men's golf. We announced the additions for the future of men's and women's indoor and outdoor track and field during this academic year as well. That was a big deal.
Yeah, and they were a club team that year.
They were a club team that year, and then we did announce during this academic year that they were going to move up and be a varsity sport then in 1920. But the big one is the opening of the Donald H. Funk Field. We opened it on September 20th. Women's soccer defeated Keystone 6-0, and I got to host homecoming the next week. It was a major project, and it was a major thing for LBC, and we'd always talked about a turf field, and to have it come to fruition and a couple months there of construction finish, it was a big deal for the campus. I know lots of high schools have turf fields, and there's lots of turf fields everywhere, but at LBC that we had grass, and we had we did not have something like that. And you were a big part of the project too, Bob, and just to have that come through and finish and have that ribbon cutting ceremony, it was a big deal.
I think you talked earlier about how we're not recalling too much about the homecoming games and everything. I know why now. For me, I was busy getting the dedication of that field going on that day, and having Don Funk there. And honestly, I'll be honest with you. I'll share a little bit of that story real quick too. Don was just a true friend of Lancaster Bible College, and his family came together and said, "How can we honor our dad?" And they helped to make that field possible. Through finances from their business and individually and stuff. And what is just really cool is Don got sick earlier in that year, and we weren't even sure he was going to be able to get there that day. And he truly wasn't even necessarily doing super well the day of dedication, that Saturday when we did it in the morning. But he came, they got him there, we got him on the field. We were able to celebrate and honor him in so many different ways. And it was just a real special day. So much of his family was there. Eventually, I'm like, guys, I'm going to need to ask you to get off the field. We need to get a soccer game going.
I remember that part.
But it was just really cool to be able to honor him. And, a field's a field, and it is what it is. But for some reason, that just seemed to spark life back into Don again. And he's actually doing really well right now. But we wouldn't have known that, but it was truly that was a very special day. And yes, it was a lot of work that day. I do recall all that now on top of everything else, but it was really special to be able to celebrate Don and the field. We have had more compliments from lacrosse, field hockey, and soccer officials all saying what a beautiful field that we have. We've been very fortunate. Like, injuries that we've had on it are pretty much knees and people just planting their feet wrong in the turf and everything.
Right.
But the addition of lights on the field, being able to play night games, that's been a real fun thing when we've had opportunity to do that. How many soccer games and everything did you and I sit at out on Charger Field? And there's a hot air balloon because it's late afternoon, and they always are taken off then.
Well, and
We don't see those hot air balloons anymore.
Nope. And you start these double headers, and you think if this first game goes to double overtime, we're not warming up. We got to get this thing going, and there's no halftime, and whatever. So it's nice now you don't have to worry about stuff like that. So the best memory category, we kind of talked about a lot of them, with whether it be Donald H. Funk Field, men's volleyball, men's tennis. That was really a surprise. And as someone who coached the team earlier in the decade, it was so great to see that team have success and those guys work hard and get to that NEAC championship. And it was just fun, and they were fun, and Darren was fun, and it was a good year for a lot of programs.
And there seems to be a lot of good momentum moving forward with that team as well, both men and women.
Absolutely.
Rod Bachman's coaching them now, and last fall, I guess it was, we resurfaced the tennis courts on campus. We don't have enough courts on campus to host a match fully. Right. If you're really doing that, you should have about 6 courts, and we only have 4. But to actually see our tennis courts looking like a great facility and being used for practices and just activity on campus, it's really great. And the men's tennis win, that definitely was a motivator to continue to build on that program.
Absolutely. Who won the year? Female side of things, Maddie Dion, we talked about. Ashton Bauslog capped her career with a nice year for women's volleyball. Courtney Goyak was great for volleyball and basketball. Caitlin Hickey, surprise on this list again for women's basketball. Spoiler alert, she's going to be on next week's too. Kayla Hubbard, women's soccer, women's tennis, had a great freshman year. On the male side, Chad Tolson, a really good year for men's soccer. Abebe and Thatcher Crow for cross country. Quentin Davis, men's basketball. Nate Miller, Cole Horse, we mentioned, for volleyball. Will Welsh for baseball. And then the Butler brothers for men's tennis as well. Good year. A lot of good seasons. A lot of couple guys on here who, probably you could argue that they're the best at that sport we've ever had, whether it be Nate Miller or Abebe or Will Welsh, Caitlin Hickey, Courtney Goyak. These are all timers on some of our lists, like we've talked about each week. We've gone through these years, and a big year for a lot of players, student athletes that way. One thing we would go back and change. This is pretty easy. The men's volleyball NEAC final. Anyone? The last 5 minutes of the men's soccer game against Grace, probably on there. Again, not too many people saw that game, but you can read a box score. And then as someone who was the men's golf coach this year, the weather at the NEAC Championships at Fox Chase was horrendous. It was so cold. It was windy. There was probably 45-mile-an-hour winds and rain on the Saturday, the first day. It was cold as can be. And it was not a fun experience. Sunday was a little bit better. It was a little sunnier on Sunday, but still pretty chilly for late April, in my opinion. But nevertheless, 2018-19, a pretty good year, and probably would have appreciated it a bit more had I known what was coming in 1920. But we are not afforded that luxury. So nevertheless, there we are.
There we are. Yeah, it was a good year. I mean, a lot of great things happened, a lot of advances for the athletic programs, and Lancaster Bible College still continues to grow. Some of our biggest teams that we've had, and continues to move forward into the next academic year, where you're going to see some of the largest amount of student athletes that Lancaster Bible College has ever seen.
Absolutely, that's right on, and that's a good way to end it as we put the wrap here on 2018-19, and we'll be back next week with 2019-20, our final recap year. We're going to have Zeke Hallman and Cole Horst on from the men's volleyball team, talk some more men's volleyball and kind of what they went through in this season that we're talking about now, and also the 2020 season, where again, couldn't ask for a better start, and unfortunately didn't get to finish. A lot of teams are going through that right now, especially in high school sports as well. So get their reactions to that, see what's ahead in the future for men's volleyball as well, and kind of wrap it up here. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll have Cameron Horst on the podcast along with Nate Muckle, and kind of talk about the future of LBC athletics. So looking forward to that. Bob, I hope you have a good rest of the week, and hey, go Chargers, go.